latest episode of Absolute Candor. This time, Mike and I are reviewing Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 3, Episode 3, Shuttle to Kenfori. Now, we are obviously 3 episodes into our 10-episode season of the 3rd season of Strange New Worlds, and as always, as is the format of the show, it's very much a new concept, new episode of the week, and I think this definitely fit with that kind of genre shifting that we're seeing so much from this show. That's kind of, they've established themselves with that now very clearly. And this, for me, just to kind of kick things off, I think the obvious sort of zombie horror, approach that they took here, I don't think was particularly successful. I actually found that to be the weaker part of the episode, is the sort of the people that were mutated on the planet. I didn't enjoy. I didn't find them particularly threatening either. I don't think they did a very good job of that. And some of the sets looked a little bit cheaper. They looked a little bit wonky. I just didn't like the production design.
The first thing, as soon as they got on the planet, like walking through with the like, they're obviously in a studio with some plastic plants hanging down, and they've got the backdrop, which is the screen, I guess, or like added later, and it just looked, like in TNG when they were on away missions and they're clearly in the studio.
Well, first season is the same planet. They just swapped a couple rocks, didn't they? Like, it was the same set backdrop.
And it had. I can't believe they couldn't. They would rather do that than go out on location somewhere and film like somewhere with some actual trees.
Which is unusual, because I think for 2 episodes running now, we've seen some really good use of the AR volume, like the interior of the Gorn ship, and then the reception, during the wedding sequence in the last episode. Both really effective uses of that backdrop. And we've seen it in engineering as well. Or the shuttle bay, we've extended the set there. It stood out for me. I don't think the production design really worked. I think some parts were too dark. I think it was badly lit. Which I don't know whether that's can't just point that straight at the writers. I think that's going to be down to the directing. It's going to be down to the cinematography and just the general production design of the episode. That was a distraction for me.
It felt like a cheap episode. I think the fact that they had the opportunity to do them like being hunted on the planet, which would have worked a lot better than, as soon as they get inside, like you say, although the zombies are, that they're trying to make out that they're like scary and threatening. I think that just the fact that they can consistently get into parts of the base where they don't seem to be under any threat, and they can have a conversation for like 10 minutes, and then the zombies like come in through the glass or whatever. Like they pile in kind of a threatening way, but it just didn't. Yeah, I guess like Pike and Benga are never getting eaten by zombies, so it's like.
Well, yeah, I think even down to that, I think that even the choreography of those, the way they moved and the way they did pile in some of those sequences, I just don't think was very effective at all. I think it didn't sustain much tension. The stuff except. Oh, go on.
Certainly compared to the previous episode, or I think the one before actually, where they're kind of, we were talking about how it's like aliens with the Gorn hunting. It's so much more effective, and I know they probably felt they couldn't do exactly the same sort of thing again. But even like just weight of numbers, zombies ambling towards you in the way like The Walking Dead does can be threatening. I think that just the fact they were piling in and could be very easily destroyed by weaponry it didn't really work.
Well, like you said, the pacing as well, the sort of the need to interject those sequences with a lot of conversation. It was very exposition heavy as well. I felt like just a bit overwritten. It wasn't staged very well, and the production design wasn't singing. So I think definitely a weaker installment. What I do want to give a spin to a positive though, and talk about the Klingon subplot within that, because actually I think that was the most effective part of the episode. Strange New Worlds, despite the fact that it is so episodic and sort of genre fluid as it kind of evolves in each episode, the fact that they did such and it was a really important recent callback as well to Mbenga's killing of that Klingon ambassador involved in the Klingon War. I'm really glad that there was a character, as Klingons would do, seeking vengeance for a member of their house, and that picked up some really nice threads from TNG and DS9. It was obviously great to see the consistent Klingon look that Strange New Worlds has adopted relative to what Discovery tried to introduce. It looks like they've just completely done away with that. We haven't really
Yeah.
seen the Klingons, particularly in Strange New Worlds. I mean, we had them in the musical episode, that dance sequence, which was hilarious. But their design and their behavior is a lot more consistent with 90s era Trek than the Discovery version of those of that species, and really enjoyed that. Actually, I liked the Klingons. Actually felt threatening, especially during that sequence when Pike and Benga took cover as the Klingons were approaching, and the Klingons quickly overpowered them, it was really nice to see that. I liked the sequence at the top on the roof with the force field with the Klingon, and them sort of, it was very Star Trek style kind of resolution of them trying to figure out a way not to fight, and then the Klingon ultimately, like, I loved that, the spin on that them dying for honor to save Pike and Mbenga as they'd reasoned with each other. That whole element of the episode, I think, was really, really effective. I think it utilized that plot thread from season 2 with him killing that ambassador, which is a pretty egregious thing that Mbenga did in that second season, despite the fact that it was obviously, he was self-defense, it was justified, but it was still a big moment that I'm glad they didn't forget about.
I think Mbenga's backstory is one of my favorite things about Strange New Worlds. I would love an Mbenga spin-off where it flashes back to more of that, because he's such a cool character. I'm glad we had this episode fleshing that out a bit more. But yeah, I agree on the point with the Klingons. I felt although I understand the justification for her seeking, trying to restore her family's honor, it was also made a bit less sense, because he killed her father, who had already lost the family's honor, effectively. I'm not sure if that makes total sense, that killing the person that killed your father, who lost your family's honor, would give your family their honor back. I feel like it would be something more than that, like probably killing a bunch of Starfleet people would do more for your family's honor than I don't know.
I'm in a TNG rewatch right now, so I am in the thick of the Klingon civil war with Gowron and Worf, and him being sort of denounced, having his honor renounced by the council, and then fighting to get that back against the Duras sister. So I'm right in the soup of that, and I think because of that was fresh in my mind during this episode. So that little sort of plot issue didn't stick out as much for me personally in that, because I think I enjoyed her characterization so much in this. It's an interesting point, but I think I'm so in the soup of Klingon Civil War stuff and honor battles.
I think it was the complexities of that conversation on the roof while there were zombies trying to get in the force field was just a bit laboured.
Well, that speaks to an issue I agree with, which I think the episode was overwritten. I think that the script needed a bit of editing, a bit of tightening up there. Because I think it then affected both the pace and tension of a lot of those scenes. It was either dragging the pace where they should be more urgent, given the threat they're facing, but also then there was a complete absence of any real fear, because we'd seen them be bested quite easily. So it just sort of, as those conversations continued to go on, it gave good interplay between the characters, but it just, I think, should have been trimmed to ensure that tension and pacing was retained.
Yeah, like I think the only bit was when the Klingon got overwhelmed on the roof at the end and like bought them some time. Like that was a nice bit that had some like emotional gravity to it. The force field on the roof didn't make a lot of sense. I guess maybe they put it there when the Klingons attacked the base in the first place, if that's what happened. But it was just a bit like, oh, great, there's a force field here, so now we can have another 10-minute conversation and not having to worry about the zombies. Yeah, I mean, obviously, but like coinciding with that was all the kind of dynamics between number one trying to maintain control over her senior staff on the bridge, which was an interesting. I for me as well. I didn't think that worked. There was something about it. I just didn't feel that the interplay between Ortegas and number one came across genuinely, and like when they were in I guess it was the ready room, and Ortegas put her opinion across. Like, I didn't think it was that out of place. I feel like if it was Pike and she had said it to Pike, it would have almost been fine, because some of his crew talked to him like that and put their opinions across
Yeah,
like
maybe
that.
the issue
I
there
think
is...
it was the way she went off at the end.
Yeah, I think it's
Enough,
Una's...
a bit of a...
If the issue is Una's characterization here, isn't it? It's not Ortega's. I think
so.
it was logical for her. We saw Ortega's do that a few times, speak up against authority, and like, especially when it was related to the Klingons and the war. We saw that in the alternate history, end of season 1. We saw her like pushing Pike to fight the Romulan ship. So that's not out of character for her. There's history there. I actually think part of that is where we've now getting a lot more time with Ortegas, which I really appreciate. There's that Reddit thread we referenced before, more Tegas, where people are pushing for her to appear more and have more to do, which I think she certainly is. I feel like in some ways, season 3, that has been at the expense of number 1. I think we've barely seen her. I think a lot of her Illyrian storyline, which was always so cool in the previous seasons, I think has been largely abandoned, and I just don't think we're getting enough time with her for that authority and her asserting herself to then have impact.
It's interesting because you say Ortegas is getting screen time almost at the expense of number 1. I think she's also it's making number 1 less likable. She doesn't come across well in this episode, and I think because her hair looks a bit silly.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because there was a wonky with the weird sort of like front plait that was going on. I honestly thought the stylist got bored. It was very distracting when it cut to her in the captain's chair and it looked like she just had a hat of hair. It was really bizarre. Like, I really don't know what was going on there.
Well, I feel like they must have been trying to do something, call back to someone, or there must be something behind that. And in relation to the issues with Ortegas, it was just too. It was all a bit weird. I think I'm okay with Ortegas, like we say, challenging authority. I'm okay with her overstepping the mark, which she definitely did and should have been reprimanded, and that was all fine. Kind of the way that was handled. But it was specifically the interplay between Una and Ortegas didn't land for me. I don't know if it was the writing or just. Yeah, it was.
I think I'll put that on the writing. I think that's one of the biggest issues of this episode. I think it's the consistency of the characterization, scenes that were overwritten that I think could have been trimmed in the edit, and the sort of expositional focus. There was so much of that in this, where I think a lot of it could have been a bit less is more. To circle back to something you said about Mbenga, I think one of the great things about his character is that he was largely a blank slate coming into Strange New Worlds. He had appeared, I think, I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but I think he's only appeared in like maybe 2, maybe 3 episodes of the original series, and he certainly wasn't the CMO. You know, that has been McCoy since the first episode of TOS, and so he largely was unexplored. He was we didn't really know who he was, and the idea of the show retconning it so that he was part of the Klingon War, and that then he would be so capable as a fighter, which I think totally is not a weird choice. I think it's really interesting for his character, for him to then always be wrestling with that as a healer. We've seen him be very empathetic, and we've seen him be a really good doctor. So I think there's a lot to mine there that the original, obviously, Klingon Ambassador episode, season 2, episode 9, did look at. Just want more of it. Just more Mbenga, please. I just think it's great.
Interesting. Obviously, he bested the Klingon on the roof. Could have killed her. And decided not to, which has its own, because killing her would have been more honourable for her.
Yep,
and that was kind of the
an honourable death. Yeah.
So it's like, has he deliberately not killed her because he knows it's like dishonourable for her, and he's trying to do that, or
does he not
way
more
more
interesting, isn't it? That's way more interesting to kind of have that as an audience assumption, or like kind of like a thought exercise of like, you know, was that his motivation? Was he doing it actually to be deep down a little,
because he hates Klingons,
to continue his sort of prejudice against Klingons? Yeah, exactly. So it's such nuance to his character, and I've got to say, brilliantly portrayed. I thought that just his performance in this was great, and also, as much as I don't, you know, as we've already said about the script, it was nice getting more time with Pike. I think we've had a lot more Pike so far this season. I feel like he was a bit reduced a little bit in season 2. We didn't see him nearly as often. He was always off somewhere, and I think having him front and center in the mission was really cool.
Yeah, just quickly on that point about honor, like that wasn't written at all. I don't think there was any suggestion that he did it to make her like to make her dishonorable. That was like, that's us as people that have watched TNG, and we're reading, and I think they could have done something to hint at that,
more
or
explicitly,
do a bit more nuance to that decision, because it came across, I think, just like, oh, Mbenga's a good guy, he's not going to kill her, like someone on the floor, but like there's a lot to Mbenga's backstory that might hint at some other stuff. But yeah, overall, it was handled nicely, and I think him and Pike having like a buddy adventure was fun, and some of the in the shuttle on the way was some of that conversation was nice
and great because their relationship has been so established that they had a history. They already had served together for a long time, which is really cool to have that continue to play out in the show.
It kind of makes me wish that almost Strange New Worlds had started like a season earlier, and we'd had like during the Klingon War or some of the characters. I mean, it would have been a risk to set it in that sort of environment as opposed to pretty much obviously a precursor to the original series. But I just want to see more almost of those flashbacks of the Klingon War.
I hope we get it peppered, because I think the risk there would be that it would feel too much like Discovery Season 1. They'd be like retreading old ground. But if they do it as like we're going to do a character focus episode like they did with Mbenga last season, and we got those that I absolutely adored that episode of Strange New Worlds where they flash back to him triaging.
My favorite, I think.
Yeah, with Nurse Chapel and him on the triaging ensigns being sent into the fight. It was such a cool side of Starfleet that we haven't really seen since DS9 and the Dominion War, particularly. With hints of it maybe in Enterprise, but not to that degree. And certainly not with that production value. So we've got a thing we're introducing now as part of Absolute Candor, which is our rolling ranking. We're going to look at the episodes we've reviewed so far and see where we currently stand. So we've got 3 episodes so far, up to episode 3. For me, the first episode of the season was the opening hegemony was the clear standout. So I'm actually going to go, I'm 1, 2, 3 in my ranking right now.
Okay.
That's where I currently stand.
Yeah, I'd be 2, 1, 3 because I like the hokiness of the second one. It just reminded me of TNG quite strongly, and it obviously helped that Q was in it. This is definitely the weakest for me. Like it's still fun to watch, but it was just there were bits of it. It's like, what are you doing? And some
logic leaps that we had to for sure.
I just want to say, like in a classic, I just have to get this in there because this always makes me laugh with Star Trek. When Scotty was there, and it's like, why isn't Pella there? And then she just wasn't in the episode, and they used to do that in Star Trek a lot. It's
That's
like
right.
We didn't get, just the absent characters that they just didn't. Just have her in the background of a scene. Come on,
I know.
Just
or like
make it more plausible.
You're shooting her in like episode 5 in the schedule. Just take a shot from that and stick it in this episode. That it gave actually. I think it's great having him as a main cast member now, because we're seeing Scotty not be the instant miracle worker. We're seeing him having to like work under so much pressure, and not be confident in his ability to do that. It's been really great to see like these super early versions of these familiar characters, because even in the J.J. Abrams reboot, Simon Pegg's Scotty is a well-rounded engineer. He knows what he's doing. He's the expert on the ship. So Strange New Worlds is exploring different territory there. And I'm actually he's been a bit of a dark horse for me this season. I think that performance as Scotty deserves credit for being so so recognizably that character, but in a very, very early form.
Yeah, one of my favourite bits of the episode was when the gravity kind of shifted, and also we saw a little bit, because we were complaining about this in episode 1. There wasn't really any damage to the ship. Like it didn't take on massive damage, but I felt like it was portrayed a bit better in this episode.
I agree.
When they were in the atmosphere. Other than we had 2, you might have noticed it, 2 like synchronized spark explosions, which I don't like. I don't like.
They didn't carry on, thankfully. Like the
I know.
Pillars, but they both came down at the same time. No, I agree. There was definitely hints of that. Come on now. Sort that out. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the latest episode of Absolute Candor. You can find us on all of the platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Threads, as well as YouTube, Podbean, and Spotify at Burly Bird Media, as well as our Discord community. Please jump in there; it's a lovely place to hang out. And we release new episodes of our various shows every single week on our YouTube channel, as well as the audio versions on Podbean and Spotify as well. Mike, where can people find you?
People can find me at theexportsguide.com and at the Exports Guide on Threads and Blue Sky.
Lovely. Well, folks, thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.